Hey guys, it's Mo from Mo in the Deep End, and as promised, I wanted to uh, give you guys a little. Well, apparently today is Serial Killer Day. I found this yesterday as I was perusing for, stuff to give you guys that didn't quite fit with Mo in the morning or the newsiest news you never needed in the evening. This kind of isn't fluffy, so I figured I would put this with, I guess, Serial Killer Mondays. I don't know. Woman of the Hour, a review, a terrifying serial killer story. Now, this is a review, but Hollywood loves nothing more than a true crime story about a serial killer, but a new movie directed by Anna Kendrick does a number on the familiar genre. Rather than being about the monster himself or even one of his victims, this film is centered about the person he didn't murder, someone who got away. Woman of the Hour, which premiered Friday at Toronto International Film Festival. Sorry, dyslexia. What can you do? Based on the 1970s crimes of Rodney Alcala, better known as the dating game killer, over a decade he took the lives of at least 8 women, but investigators believe the number could be as high as 130, and I tend to believe it's higher, to be honest, on the high side, not higher than 130, but on the higher side. Akala's most surreal chapter, however, was when he appeared as a bachelor on the 1978 episode of The Dating Game, smack dab in the middle of committing these atrocities. The question posed by Kendrick, making a strong directing debut, and writer Ian MacDonald, is the justice system so screwed up and so societally unconcerned with women? Okay, blah, blah, blah. No, it's not societally unconcerned with women. The reason that Alcala was able to get away with this is, again, you have a conflagration of the fact that during this time in the 70s, you had a culture that was okay with hitchhiking. You did not have integrated communication between police departments. Fry has decided to get away from the pet cam, so I'm not going to have it up where you guys are just looking at an empty space. But it wasn't because they hated women, so I'm gonna kinda get out of this. But it wasn't because they hated women. You had women that were hitchhiking, you had free love, you had a lot of different things that were working against the police. Again, it was while it's crazy for me to think that you had young women who were just accepting, "Hey, this rando guy said I could be a model. He's gonna take some pictures of me over here." No, don't know him, have never Googled him. Google doesn't exist. Just gonna meet him, rando guy somewhere in the middle of nowhere to take pictures, or stick my thumb out in the middle of the street or the middle of the highway, rando guy's gonna pick me up. It was a different culture. It was also that, different police areas did not talk to each other. So, I disagree with the premise right off the bat. And now I know that there's going to be agendas in Hollywood movies, but he yes, he's already been at this point, Rodney Alcala had already been arrested for assault when he was on a game show. But really, then the onus should have been on the dating game to check him out. But it was the '70s, and at the time, I don't think anyone there would have thought, "Hey, I should maybe check to see if this guy's a total douche monkey before I let him on my dating game." They were probably just like, "Does he really smell like a whole bunch of weed? Okay, no. Is he conscious? Well, there we go." Kendrick does double duty, also playing dating game contestant Cheryl Bradshaw, who picked Akala for a date at the end of the show. And this is the actual real life, Cheryl Bradshaw. Now, This person this woman actually did not end up going out with Rodney Alcala, uh, even though she did win a date with him, and the questions are so very cringe, just so gross. Now, this goes on to be so ridiculous, and feminist that I'm not gonna read the rest of the review. If you would like to go see the film, I'm sure it's, men bad and women awesome, but he's a douche, he's a terrible monster. Feminist or not, the he was going to murder people, he was an obvious jerk and gross and disgusting. I mean, so listen, you can go see the movie. I'm not saying don't go see the movie if you would like to see it, but it's also okay. Alrighty then, interessante. But seriously, must we always go directly to the of it? And really, no, we must not. But this is a New York Post piece that I think will kinda give a little bit more of reality to the thing, but it has been brought up in the news now because, like I said, the Kendrick movie has gotten good reviews. Look, I'm not gonna go on into the whole feministity of it. I don't particularly like when we try to redo history with this armchair quarterbacking of how police really sucked because and I'll give you a documentary to look at, on Netflix called, I think, Hunting the Night Stalker, and it's from the point of view of the police, the 2 detectives that are hunting the Night Stalker, and it wrecked their lives and almost wrecked the one detective's marriage. I mean, they were out Dianne Feinstein, the 807-year-old husk that I don't know if she's running for reelection, uh, totally screwed the pooch on their investigation, but just to look back and knee-jerk say, "Oh, well, they just hated women, that's why they didn't find this guy," is very simplistic, it's reductive, it really paints kind of a very simplistic lens through which you, the director, are seeing this particular piece of history and not so much the reality of what's happened. Again, that's just my opinion, and like all people, everyone has an opinion, so like I say, you are free to go see the movie, like the movie, love it, all the feminisms in the world, but let's digress. The true story about how an active serial killer appeared on the dating game. Now, this particular gentleman is a super douche. He did actually go on to represent himself because mega douche. The story of Rodney Alcala, the dating game killer, has been turned into a movie called The Woman of the Hour, highly fictionalized, apparently. It was supposed to just be another silly episode of the dating game. At a taping of a popular TV show in 1978, host Jim Lang introduced three male suitors who were there to be cutely questioned by a single woman, Cheryl Bradshaw, sitting on the other side of a partition. She was looking for love in all the wrong places. The studio lights came up on a long haired man with sunken eyes and a wide grin, who the audience could see but Bradshaw could not. Bachelor number one is a successful photographer who got his start when his father found him in the darkroom at age 13, fully developed, Lang quipped on the sexually charged ABC hit. Yeah, the Look, the single entendres were cringe AF, okay? Yikes. I liked Hollywood Squares. I don't remember who the little Nevish guy was that was always making the single entendres, but he was awesome. He was my favorite if you're gonna have, a pervy sort of skeevy guy. I liked him best. Between takes, you might find him skydiving or motorbiking. Please welcome Rodney Alcala. I always like to think, what would mine be like? Well, this is bachelorette number 1. She enjoys mouthing off to the internet. She's redheaded and well, she generally likes people, but in short bursts. Um, she likes Futurama. She likes closed captions on. She generally enjoys people. She likes cringe. She thinks it's cringe-hilarious. I don't know. I'm so glad I don't have to date anymore. Oh my gosh. And for those of you looking for love, I hope you find it, but, don't go on ABC. Skydiving and motorbiking weren't the half of it. Unbeknownst to Lang, Bradshaw, and the game's producer, 35-year-old Akala was secretly a murderer in the midst of a prolific killing spree across New York, California, and Wyoming. Look, everyone has to have a job. I guess he couldn't put it on his LinkedIn mostly because LinkedIn wasn't invented then. Yeah, well, we all have. Between 1971 and 1979, he took the lives of at least 8 people, including small ones and a pregnant woman, but authorities estimate the number of his victims may be closer to 100. Bradshaw very nearly could have become one. The woman actually chose to go on a date with the monster at the end of the episode. A new movie about Alcala, his grisly crimes, and his unusual TV appearance had its premiere Friday night at the Toronto International Film Festival. Called Woman of the Hour and directed and starring Anna Kendrick, the film should bring renewed attention to the deviant who slayed his many victims during the same time as Ted Bundy and John Wayne Gacy's more infamous rampages. Quote, "When you go back and look at the dating game video, what's most fascinating is he'd already committed a crime," criminal profiler Pat Brown told CNN. He assaulted very horrifically a little girl and nearly unalived her. Had a I believe a bystander not been paying attention and had that gut feeling that something was very, very wrong and followed Rodney Alcala and this young girl, she would not be alive at this point. And here's a man portraying himself as a desirable young man when he is really a violent predator of children. So how did a serial killer wind up on a Good Time national game show? Well, look, he had a better agent than Kevin Spacey. I don't know. Let's find out. In the days before the internet, talent background checks were difficult and a basic Google search was impossible. Even so, the husband and wife producing team of Mike and Ellen Metzger disagreed about casting Akala at first, even though or Ellen thought the man was attractive and charming, but Mike recalled feeling uneasy about the situation. He had a mystique about him that I found uncomfortable, Mike told ABC's 2020. He was overruled, though, and Alcala made the cut. While the killer's on-air answers to Bradshaw were typical for the double entendre stuffed program, they were chilling in retrospect. "I am serving you dinner. What are you called and what do you look like?" the woman asked. "I'm called a banana and I look good," Akala replied. "Peel me." Ew. Come on, be a little less phallic and obvious and gross and disgusting and obvious. Akala didn't lie during his dating game interview, though. He really was a photographer. What he left out of his biography is that he used his profession to lure unsuspecting women and men into his home. Then he would unalive them brutally, and sometimes, stop, sorry, and sometimes, um, assault them after the photo shoots. Born in San Antonio, Texas, raised in Mexico and California, Alcala is remembered as outgoing and having many friends by those who knew him. According to the book, The Dating Game Killer: The True Story of the TV dating show, A Violent Sociopath and a Series of Brutal Murders, that is the longest title ever. A professor at UCLA, where Alcala was once a student, told the cops that he wouldn't hurt a fly. Like Bundy, Alcala hid his true tendencies with charisma. His earliest known crime was the gruesome assault of 8-year-old Tally Shapiro. He abducted the girl outside her temporary home at the Chateau Marmont in 1968 by lying that he was a friend of her parents. At his apartment, he took her picture, bashed her in the head, nearly strangled her to death with a barbell. Thanks to a tip, the police discovered the girl barely alive. Now, I wanna say, and they'll probably get to this closer to the end of the article, but just to let you guys know that this girl is a badass. This little girl right here, badass. Her family ends up moving to Mexico because they no longer feel safe. Years later, and I do mean years. Once he is caught and he is representing himself because he is the biggest douche canoe in the entire world. She comes back and she faces this monster as a nearly grown woman, and she faces this man, and she looks him in the eye. She tells her story, and she, she is a badass because I don't know many people who could go through what she did at 8 years old, barely live, barely survive, and then come back to face this monster, to have him question her, to have him cross-examine her, and then for her to maintain her poise and dignity through the entire thing, and from what I've heard, from what I've read, again, I'm a little bit of a weirdo. I may have watched all the documentaries and everything else. He got Twitter pated a little bit by her grace and her bravery and just all of the things. So you are a badass, Tally Shapiro, and I don't know where you are, but badassery right there, bravery in its truest form, because you know what? I can't imagine the the actual big girl pantiness it took to get up there, face this man, that monster that did this to you, look him in the eye, answer his questions, and tell him to go straight to hell. Well, I'm sure you didn't, but you know what I mean. To just look him in the eye, tell him what he did, tell the truth, and then see him go straight to prison, which she survived and her family relocated to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, but Acala escaped out the back door and soon fled to New York, where he applied at NYU under the fake name John Berger, where he studied film under director Roman Polanski. Are we shocked? While living in Manhattan, he raped and murdered TWA flight attendant Cornelia Creeley in her apartment on East 83rd Street. Added to the FBI's most wanted list for assaulting Shapiro, Alcala was spotted and arrested at a camp in New Hampshire, then extradited to California. Despite all that, he was paroled due to an issue with a witness being allowed to leave the state. Because people are so, oh. Back in New York in 1977, he killed Ellen Hoover, a 23-year-old daughter of the owner of Ciro's in West Hollywood. One newspaper headline read, "Nightclub heiress goes missing." Her bones were found 11 months later in Westchester near Rockefeller Estate. Okay, guys, I'm not seeing it. I mean, I don't know. Y'all tell me. I don't Ted Bundy, this guy, I don't see it, but I don't it's the eyes, and them are some Manson lamps to me. Alcala's trail of blood intensified in the late 70s. In California, he murdered 18-year-old Jewel Barkham, 27-year-old nurse Georgia Wickstead, 31-year-old legal secretary Charlotte Lamb, 21-year-old typist Jill Parenteau, and 12-year-old Robin Samso. Alcala police learned approached Samso, who was biking to ballet class, with an offer to take her picture. After the 1978 dating game filming, Bradshaw was saved by her own instinct. She said, "Ellen, I can't go out with this guy." Ellen Metzger recalled to 2020, "There's a weird vibe coming off from him. He's very strange, and I'm not comfortable. Is that going to be a problem?" Um, this guy looks nothing like that guy. I don't know why they can't find. Okay. Bradshaw decided not to go through with the date, and only 1 year later, Alcala was charged with the death of Samso. He was found guilty in 1980. The verdict was later overturned, the case was retried and then affirmed numerous times, and the killer always remained behind bars. The true extent of his horrors only became known beginning in 2003, when investigators started trying Alcala's DNA to unsolved murders. In addition to his death sentence in California, he was given 25 years to life in 2013 for his New York killings. Alcala died in a California prison in 2001 of unspecified natural causes at age 77. Matt Murphy, former senior deputy district attorney of Orange County, California, summed up the surreal ordeal on 2020. Quote, "Looking back, it's a chilling to realize that this iconic show celebrating love and romance unknowingly featured a remorseless killer." It's odd, but again, they didn't have background checks. They didn't have all the things that we have now. I think it's odd and surreal for us because we've grown so comfortable with the fact that we have these things at our fingertips that we can no longer we can no longer imagine a time when we didn't have them, and I think that's what is really strange to us. We can't imagine a time where people would have to call, or there was a file of fax, or, there was a fax going through and you would have to have a dedicated line, or someone would have to go through and Xerox or send overnight something to actually get information. We have gotten so spoiled with the fact that we can literally learn things around the world within seconds. And the police back then didn't have that luxury. So it isn't because the police hate women and it's, feminism. It's because we didn't have that technology. And and we didn't you rarely see hitchhikers anymore. I mean, I think they were ubiquitous back at that time in California. I could be wrong, but isn't that how, you had Edmund Kemper, you had, a bunch of other serial killers who took victims of opportunity because there was this culture of hitchhiking. I mean, again, it was a different time, and not everything was because police definitely hated people with lady bits, and I think it's reductive, I think it's simplistic, and I think it's silly to see it through that lens, but that's just my opinion, and goodness knows that I am just a redhead, a fake one at that, yelling at the internet, so it really is silliness, but those are my thoughts, and I figured while I had some time, as they are taking forever, right before I have to go pick up the boys, I would put this up there. So, remember to join me tonight at 7 for the first newsy news you didn't know you needed. I will come up with a name, I think. Newsiest news ever, tonight at 7. It will be just like Mornings with Mo, but a little newsier. And then, see you tomorrow because I think possibly, maybe, might, could, they are starting the Gareth Pursehouse case again, possibly, but we never know. And we are adaptable. This is the internet. So if not, we will adapt. Have a wonderful rest of your Monday. Remember, with this being the anniversary of 9/11, try to do something good for someone else, a small something in your neck of the woods. Let's try to do something good, try to be of service if you can. You know, everyone doing small acts of kindness in their own little corner can make something big happen. I always firmly believe that if we at least try to do something small in our own little corner, we can achieve something pretty big. So please like and subscribe, and I will see you guys later and have a wonderful rest of your Monday. Bye, guys.